Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new season of the Purposeful Life Show with your host, Adrian Starks. I'm excited to share some new updates of the show with you, starting with a new look, sound, and energy, as well as a variety of guests coming aboard with intriguing topics of conversation. I hope you enjoy the new level of energy that will be brought to the show. Thank you for all of your support since the very beginning in 2019. Wow, it's been 3 years already? Because of you, the Purposeful Life Show is now in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, and we aim to get it into the top 1%. Continue listening to the show and share it with others. You can also now listen to the show on my Facebook page at Adrian Starks, where you can comment in real time and communicate with me about your aha moments. Thank you again for all of your support, and let's make this one hell of a year and be purposeful about doing that. Wishing you all much love and success. Is it true to the saying that when we change how we look at things, the things we look at begin to change? If we do this, could it change our experience and that could lead to a better outcome? We all can see our businesses and lives from a different perspective, but often we are challenged to look at our own perspectives differently. What happens when we choose to change that perspective? Or what happens when we choose to not? Join us on our new episode, Adjusting to the Path.
Welcome to the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast with your host, Adrian Starks. If you're looking for the ideas that could be your breakthrough for change in your business, career, or personal life, then this podcast is for you. Join Adrian as he speaks on topics of personal and professional development for the person behind the business and interviews a variety of entrepreneurs, business owners, and thought leaders to reveal their ideas and solutions to success and its challenges. Subscribe to the show and leave us a review. It's time to connect, learn, and grow.
Welcome, everyone, to our new home, the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast with your host. I am Adrian Starks, and I'm excited to be back in action. It's been a little while, and there has been quite a few changes, and I'll talk about one of those changes in just a bit here. Before we get started with our show today, make sure you go ahead and download this podcast onto your favorite podcast platform by going to connectnowpodcast.com. Speaking of connectnowpodcast.com, let's talk about why the Purposeful Life Show is now on this platform. I will actually go into more detail about this decision with the CEO of Connect Now, Katie McKay, on our next episode. But for now, let's just say that the Purposeful Life Show needed a new home. I remember when my first episode on the Champion Up podcast was back in February 1st of 2019, and there were so many amazing interviews and shows that we did up until this point. But I realized that I wanted to do something different. I wanted to expand. I wanted to reach entrepreneurs, business owners, and other people from other walks of life. And in order to do that, I needed to surround myself with people who are already doing that. And that's how I came into contact with connectnowpodcast.com, which is why the Purposeful Life Show is now here. And we are going to deliver amazing educational pieces. We're going to share stories. We're going to help people really see the person behind the business and show them what it takes to build success, even in the midst of changes and challenges. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about adjusting to the path and the myth about starting over. The challenges that we are all facing here in the 2020 year is the challenge of change. And a lot of us are unwilling to adjust ourselves on the path because we think that if we do that, we're actually quitting or we're starting over. And that's only a myth. There's no way of starting over. There's only a way of changing direction. But why are so many people resisting this? Why is it so hard for people just to adjust? Or, as the trending word goes, pivot. When we are unwilling to do this, we face resistance upon resistance and we find ourselves running into brick walls. Over time, these brick walls begin to hurt more, and then we find ourselves in a position to quit. We get less creative, we get more moody, and we find things to complain about. Today, I want to share with you a story that allowed me to see things very differently and allowed me to really take on this 2020 year and the 21 year with a perspective of going forward, not going straight. I am sure right now in your head, you're probably thinking, well, Adrian, what do you mean by going straight versus going forward? And that's exactly how I felt when I was sitting with a friend years ago in a diner when we were discussing this point in my life that I considered to be the crossroads, a point that we're all facing right now. And I believe this story is going to help you see things a little bit better and allow you to be more creative and to get that passion and that zest for life back into your business and your personal life. As we're sitting at the table, I had a different countenance about me, and she noticed this. Right in front of me was my favorite plate of orange chicken with brown rice and broccoli, and usually I would take the time to engulf that, but that day something was very different. I didn't have the appetite to eat. The reason for this was because I had tasted the bitterness of failure so much that nothing else tasted or even felt the same. I'm sure a lot of you right now who are listening to this understands how that feels. My friend looks at me and she says, Adrian, you've got to lift your head up so you can see where you're going. I responded like most people would. Every time I try something, it seems to be going into a brick wall. What more can I do? I just don't want to do anything else. I was stuck. I was unwilling to move forward. She said, Adrian, do you know what it means to move forward versus going straight in life? I was a bit confused because I thought those two things meant the same. And I said, what are you talking about? They're the same thing. She says, no, they're not. Let me show you. She takes her glass of water and pushes it to the middle of the table. She says, Adrian, take a good look at this glass. She starts moving the glass very slowly toward the edge of the table. She says, this is what it's like when you begin to move forward in life. You don't have to go fast. You don't have to go necessarily slow. You just have to be a little more cautious, because then you can pay attention to the things that are happening around you and the things that are coming towards you. And as I'm moving my glass, Adrian, watch what happens when I decide, and she repeats, when I decide to adjust my path because of this thing that's in front of me. She moves that glass away from the edge of the table. She looks back at me and says, this is what happens when you move forward in life. You make decisions based on what you see, what you experience, but you always can determine where you want to go. Then she takes that same glass and moves it back to the middle of the table. She takes the glass and she holds it tightly and then begins to move it fast toward the end of the table. She looks at me and she says, Adrian, this is called moving straight in life. You're not adjusting, you're not paying attention, you're just trying to barrel through things. And guess what happens? And she stops at the edge. She says, you let go. And when you let go of your self-control, you fall off the edge of anything. If you don't let go of your ego, you run right into the brick wall that you were talking to me about. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to go forward, where you can be over here and adjust yourself? Or do you want to go straight and take whatever comes in your direction and then complain about it? It's times like this where you need to have those kind of friends, okay? Friends who will call it out like it is. You hate them for it when they do it, but afterwards you really appreciate the fact that they could open up to you honestly and give it to you with courage. That day I learned a lot about moving forward and moving straight in life. A lesson that I even use today in my own life and how I teach others. I call it growing forward, which is why the Connect Now Business Network resonates so well with me in their philosophy of connect, learn, and grow. The point of this story is quite clear. We all have a choice to decide how we want to go about our next moves. This week, next month, and next year. It all comes down to how you see things. Do you see your life as moving forward or going straight? Remember, if you're going straight in life, you're not allowing yourself to see the opportunities. You're not allowing yourself to see the challenges that could present to you a new change that is necessary for your growth in business or your personal life. What you're doing when you're moving straight is you're just wanting things to be a certain way. As most people would say, go back to being normal. There is no going back to being normal. There is only a thing now called the new normal. And the new normal is accepting change. To be effective in your business, right now, you will have to take on the approach of going forward. That is adjusting your path. Even if your path may wind into different challenges and changes or even problems, you benefit most by adjusting to the path. It reminds me of the story of the oak tree and the reed, which was an Aesop fable. See, the oak tree was this powerful tree in the forest that was able to weather any storm. Unfortunately, there was this huge windstorm that came by that the oak tree had never faced before. So it fought as much as it could, resisting everything the wind brought to it. The tree was uprooted by the wind and blown into the river that was right behind it. The tree was carried down the river to find itself defeated. As it got out of the river and started walking around, it noticed the little reeds still in place. So what happens when we get defeated by something or we have a bad experience? We start talking to ourselves, right? Saying, why did I get myself into that? Why did I make that decision? How did that happen? The tree was saying this over and over again until one of the little reeds said, well, you fought against the wind and we bent with it. The moral of that story is that that powerful tree was not powerful because it was resisting change. It was resisting the ability to adapt. True power is when we're flexible in our minds, in our actions, in our feelings. Right now is the time to be more flexible on your path. You're going to have days where you're going to feel like things are not going your way, but how can you adjust yourself emotionally? How can you adjust yourself mindset-wise? I want to go back to that lesson I learned with my friend. We will always have the final decision to whether we want to go straight or forward. This decision of going forward just doesn't apply to business. It applies to your personal life. Let's say you have someone who's very rude. You have the decision to go straight into an argument with them, finding yourself getting emotionally distressed, or you can decide to go forward and to be the bigger person and to not get into the argument. You can go forward in life by allowing yourself to make a mistake, but not allowing yourself to live in that mistake. Going forward is a choice to move beyond the barriers that we have in front of us. Right now, take a deep look at the path that you are on. Ask yourself 2 questions. Have I adjusted myself on this path? And if you haven't, the second question, why have I not? It's very important to do this self-reflection to find out what we're actually doing in our lives on our paths. In other words, am I determined to go straight in my ego of thinking, or am I willing to surrender to the fear of uncertainty and take on a new direction no matter where that path may twist or turn? This week, I want you to do something that's going to challenge you and take you outside of your comfort zone so that you can be able to adjust yourself along your paths no matter what comes your way in your business or your personal life. For 7 days straight, I want you for each day to do something that takes you out of your comfort zone. Asking for help. Reaching out to someone different every day through a social media platform like LinkedIn to make new contacts. Talking to yourself in public is a good one. I do this quite often. The key here is that by doing something out of your normal routine, you will build the courage muscle to step outside of your comfort zone continuously. And this will lead to you being able to adjust to the path accordingly without resisting it so much. In the words of Robert Frost, from his poem, The Road Not Taken, I'm going to choose the last passage of this poem to bring home the point. 2 roads diverged into the woods, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference in the world. Choose the road less traveled by choosing to go forward in your life and adjusting to the new paths that come about for you. Remember this, there is no starting over. There is only a change in direction. Until then, I encourage you to be that courageous creator of change in your life.
Thank you for listening to the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast with your host, Adrian Starks. Subscribe to the show and connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. Learn more about us by visiting our website at cnbn.ca. Go to connectnowpodcast.com to be inspired by more life-changing content. Let's connect, learn, and grow.